Well, good afternoon. Diane, thanks very much for that introduction, and glad to be here today, particularly on a subject that's so vitally important to all of us and to all of you in this room, which is about competitiveness and innovation in America. It's great to be in Texas, particularly in Austin, where I had the opportunity last year to talk to all the University of Texas system chancellors, presidents, and deans about STEM and how important it is and the work that they're doing to make sure we've got the workforce of the future. There's another important thing I learned here in Austin, and that is Angelina Eberly, and I'm not sure how many of you know that name, but think back in your past history, particularly from Texas. How many of you are Texans? Put your hands up. Okay, there's enough, so there'll be a quiz here about Angelina Eberly. Here in Austin, sometime back in the Republic, when it was a republic, I'm sure there are some in Texas who still believe it is the Republic. There was a gentleman named of Sam Houston who wanted to move the state or the republic capital from Austin to a city that's named after him, to Houston. So he sent the local military up to Austin, and was going to collect all of the records from the republic and move them. A young lady by the name of Angelina Eberly got wind of this. She was a local hotel operator, and she rallied the group to go try and withstand, and she actually had a cannon brought to her support. She fired a cannon at Sam Houston's troops, put a hole in the building that they were in, and as a result of that, she was able to rally the community of Austin to hold on to the records and kept Austin as the capital of Texas. And so, when you think about community, what did she bring to the table? She brought knowledge, she brought experience, and she brought community. And that is the heart about what innovation and development is in this country. It's what it's always been. It's what our challenge is to maintain. The theme for this conference is about engineering in motion, and it tends to be focused on electric vehicles. And I know you've got James Kennedy, the former director of NASA Kennedy Space Center, here to talk to you. I think early on, I think he's your keynote tomorrow evening or tomorrow afternoon. I did a little bit of work in NASA, was responsible at one point within Boeing for the space shuttle program. So spent a lot of time down at Kennedy Space Center, Johnson Space Center, and a Marshall Space Flight Center before, and I know that James was part of the activity when I was involved with my motion in Boeing. But we drove in from Alpine today, about 400 miles to the west of us here, and not far away, NASA tested their moon rovers back in the 60s. Where they had the moon rover itself, astronauts in their spacesuits, all in a simulated environment. Because the last place they wanted to check it out for the first time was on the moon, when they're a little bit far away from the lifeline. But the fact is, there remains some today who believe that man never really went to the moon because they have videos of what went on in Alpine. So I think the important part is, what did NASA and the astronauts learn there? Did they learn more in Alpine or more on the moon? One could argue that point. What they learned on Alpine was critical to what they learned about being out in space. But I think it's critically important, that was a simulation. That was not the real world, the real environment they were going to face. And I think it's an important element for us to think about as we think about developing for the workforce of the future and think about what we need to do to prepare our jobs going forward. Now I'd like to pause, and I know it's lunchtime, and many of you have had a full morning on career development and opportunities to consider, and once you fill up the belly, you kind of relax, kind of soothe out, and that's one of the challenges of being a lunchtime speaker. So I do at great risk what I'm about to go do. But I'd ask you to consider about closing your eyes and think back to what life was like when you were a kid growing up. And for some, that's when the lunar rovers were actually being tested in Alpine. Okay, some of us are that old. But think about, was there a computer in your room? Did you have a TV in your room? Did you have a cell phone? And how much TV did your parents allow you to watch? Or were you outside? Yeah, not much. Yep. Or you were outside riding a bike, at the park, in a friend's house, or in the garage tinkering and creating things that you probably got yourself in trouble for sometime along the way. But the reason I think that's important, think about the experiences that our children have today. How many have a cell phone? How many have TVs? How many have computers in their rooms? In fact, I was got some feedback from a teacher the other day who teaches in an environment where all the kids are on free lunch, free breakfast, what's considered a poverty area. But all those kids have cell phones. They all have Game Boys. They all have all the electronic media today that today we consider, many of our kids consider critically important, but they're in a poverty environment. And the fact is, our kids today, spend about an average of 7.5 hours per day somehow in the electronic simulated world. That's their reality. Now, could we have ever anticipated experiencing landing on the moon without going to Alpine? Well, probably, or probably not. But the experience of going on the moon really fundamentally transformed our understanding, our perspectives, and our knowledge in the way that never could have been done in a simulated experience. Being part of the Boeing company, we design, develop aircraft today to be safer, more environmentally friendly, more passenger friendly, and comfortable. In the end, we bring together 3 million parts to make an aircraft fly and be successful. And the aircraft safety record is phenomenal. And computer modeling and simulation are important tools to be used every day in designing aircraft. But in the end, that's just it. They're tools. They're not a replacement for the real world. Back in the 60s and 70s, who were the people who designed the Saturn rockets, designed the Apollo spacecraft? Mostly they came off the farms from the real world. Real world experience, not just technical knowledge. They were practicing engineers with practical experience using the best tools they had available to them. And there weren't too many computers around back then. In fact, even if you look at Space Shuttle today, the heart of Space Shuttle is 2 386 computers. That still allows this thing to fly into space and come back safely. And while 3 men went to the moon, it was 3 million men and women who created the system that took them there. So let's shift the time reference for a minute. How many futurists do we have in the room? You think about the future, your plan? Probably all of us, okay? So, pause for a minute, close your eyes if you want, again at great risk of you falling asleep here. But think out, not today, but 30 years going forward. And imagine what the world will be like 30 years from now. Given the technical focus of the conference, I'm sure electric vehicles are certainly part of everyone's future. But what else is out there? As you're thinking about the future, I expect most are thinking about things that we create, things that we utilize, okay, things that make our life easier. But I would ask you to also think about, what do you think relationships will look like 30 years from now? At the table here, we're having lunch and talking about the relationships that all of us have with our kids. We're considered old if we use email nowadays. If we're not on Facebook with the instant connectivity, what does that relationship look like? But I'll also ask you to think about what's the strength of some of those relationships. And so thinking about 30 years from now, what is like with family, with friends, at work, or in our community. For most, I think, since you're mostly all engineers, electrical engineers, or involved in the IT arena, I suspect that you see lots of opportunities developed to be invented, an engineer's dream. But I'd like to shift one more time. Think about the last time you designed or created something. You used technical knowledge. You might have been part of a team that pulled together a broader activity of experiences to be able to create something. You probably used a computer simulation to validate assumptions or determine a set of coefficients. But in the end, it was your knowledge, your experience that allowed you to succeed. And it's no matter that than those who built the machines that took man to the moon and returned them safely. About 20% of our employees in the aerospace industry are eligible to retire today, and another 20% will be eligible to retire in the next 5 years. Will they all retire when they're eligible? No. Our average age of retirement as Boeing is about 61 years old. And we are representative of all of aerospace, which is about 750,000 to 800,000 employees. We're all kind of about the same. So if you just do the math and say 20% is eligible to retire today, that's about 160,000. In another 5 years, that'll be 320,000 people will be eligible to retire. And so as the leader of HR within the Boeing company, and a leader in aerospace, what I worry about is not will there be enough people to do the job. There'll be plenty of people to be able to meet the needs. There is no labor shortage in America. The challenge is, will there in fact be a skill shortage? Because what we have today, we have people who have knowledge, and there's no question about it. The question is, do they have the experience? You can go into any college or university around the U.S. today, and I spend a lot of time out there with them. At Boeing, we have relationships with well over 150 college universities, direct relationships. And through our Learning Together program, our employees attend another couple hundred colleges or universities. So we know what goes on at the schools, and we see students who have great knowledge. In fact, many of us are blown away by what they know. The challenge is, do they have the experiences that will allow them to be successful solving the problems that we see? Because without experiences, how do you connect the knowledge to be able to have some relevance about the problems that people are trying to solve? When I grew up, I worked for my dad. Started at age 7. He was a general contractor. It was a great experience. I built houses and done most of the work necessary associated with construction. I have a lot of first-hand experience. But it wasn't what I always thought when it came to the experience side. Not only do you have to be able to build a house, the technical knowledge, you also have to get it done on schedule and cost such that you make money at the end. So I may have had jobs framing or plumbing or electrical, getting the job done. Time was also important, and I didn't always meet the mark. And along the way, I was fired not once, but 4 times by my dad. Those are tough traumas. You can't very well go home and complain to your mom that you got fired, particularly when her husband's the boss. And so, but, being a little bit slow, that experience over time, you begin to learn about what's truly important in a business environment and what it really takes to be successful. Now think back to the statistic I gave you a few minutes ago. Kids spend 7.5 hours a day in the media or simulated world. When playing a computer game, what happens when they don't make it to the next level? Okay? Well, they try again. Or they turn off the computer or the video game. There are no consequences other than that. That's not real life. Yet those are the experiences that our children are seeing each and every day. Yesterday, I flew into Midland, Odessa, out of Chicago, and then drove to Alpine. When my driver picked me up in Chicago, as I walked out of the condo, I was confronted by the condo doorman. In this case, it's actually a woman, and the driver were talking about something laying in the driveway of the condo. It was 4 o'clock in the morning, so it was dark. They both thought there was a dead animal laying in the driveway, but they were too scared to go see. You see, both Larry and Roberta were born and raised in the city. No time outside of the city in the real world to see many dead animals. So from my perspective, it was dead. It was dead. What's the problem? It's just kind of laying there. I grew up raising rabbits and lots of other animals, horses, cattle, chickens, geese, you know, kind of the works. In fact, I owned a little enterprise called Rick's Rabbitry. Excellent pets, quality meats. So I walked over to see what was purported to be the dead animal laying in the driveway, to find a short pine tree branch laying in the driveway. So I picked it up and promptly threw it into the planter. Let's go back to where we started. Going to the moon was real. The lives we live are very real. The future will become very real. The complexities of solutions while building electric cars, the associated infrastructure including power distribution, maintenance, repair, and support are all very real. To be successful, we have to have the technical knowledge and real-world experience. But as I pointed out, most of our kids don't get the real-world experiences anymore. Ask a kindergarten teacher about the skills children have when they start school. Or go watch a t-ball game. Many children can't hold scissors. Many children can't hold a pencil. Many can't catch a ball. And watch when they try and run. All things you and I took for granted as we grew up because we were in the outside real world. That's where you come in, preparing our future citizens and engineers. You know, I've been involved in the formal side of education and workforce development for the past 15 years, and Boeing invests very real dollars in education. When you combine our investment in formal education, sending our employees back to college or university, when you combine what we include in education and the philanthropic programs, when you talk about college scholarships, and in our business charitable donations, we put in about $140 million into education each and every year. And what have we learned? When real-world experiences are part of those programs and part of the learning, success soars. At the university level, where engineering students are known for, where we know in engineering schools, half the students who apply and show up in the first year are the ones who graduate 4 years later. 50% yield. Yet there are some college and universities achieving an 85% yield. Why is that so important? Because at our current yield rate going through college and universities, we graduate about 60 to 70,000 engineers a year. If you broaden it to include the broader sciences, it's about 200,000 a year. Not enough to meet our long-term needs. And so these schools that are achieving 85% yield from the time they show up till the time they come out, if we were able to get 85% yield on all of our engineering curriculum, we'd have about 110,000 graduates each year, much closer to what we need in this nation. What are those schools doing? The first is all incoming freshmen are assigned to a professor who has about 50 students under his or her wing to help and guide the students and help them to the transition into college, particularly since many students, this is the first time they've been away from home. They help them with the human interaction, they help them with the challenges of life, and they help them be successful. Second, the successful engineering schools have taken over two really important courses that many freshmen struggle with, mathematics and physics. Why? Because, and I was a math major going to college, I got a lot of theoretical work through my undergraduate degree, not a lot of practical application. What do engineers want? You know, practical, real-world application. They need to see mathematics and physics and something they can apply as opposed to just the theory behind it. And so the successful engineering schools are now teaching mathematics and physics for engineers, not for the theoretical side. Third is those schools that are successful, rather than waiting till their seniors get all the, or their students get all the core knowledge, they put them out in the real world and give them projects. One such school at Columbia University, their engineers, they put them in teams of 5 and they send them out to the community, and the community gives them projects. What an amazing way for them to learn. Go out and find real customers, and their job is develop project. Now, many of them are in the IT area, something the students have a good handle on, but many are more complex than that. Now, how does that bring around to what you can do? My recommendation is be part of an activity or mentorships that provides students at any level, whether it's elementary school, junior high school or college, with real-world experiences. Help them to ensure they understand the concepts and principles they need to know, and then help them apply them. But don't do the work for them. How many of us in this room are parents? How many of us have had our students do projects? How many of us have done the projects for our kids? Okay, we all know. Okay, and it's the late night activity down at the end because the kids haven't been pressed. We missed the button and it's due the next day. We do our kids a disservice when we don't give them the opportunity to experience the real activities, including failure. Because the challenges that are out there are far greater than we can ever expect. Now, can we answer questions, give advice, provide wisdom? Of course, that's what they're there for. But the time alone is what's important, not the money. It's when they have the experiences we're there to support them, it's important. There are some great examples, some programs that I've been involved with for a long time and continue to be involved with. One is First Robotics or First Lego League. Great programs that it's about bringing kids together, and they're given some really tough assignments. They got to come together as teams. They typically have mentors, and I'm sure there's some mentors in this room who support First Robotics and First Lego League. A great program. And, you know, as mentors, the mentors help, but it's up to the students. They win or lose based upon their actions and their experience. And I know IEEE supports a number of activities in this area. And the key again is not how much time or how much money we put in, it is about how much time we provide as mentors and how much time we give the kids the opportunity to succeed or fail. The problem is we all want our teams to win, okay? We all want our kids to be successful, but we do them a disservice if in fact we do too much. Let me shift my focus for a moment and talk about your careers, because I suspect given today's job market and while the unemployment rate is picking back up, still a challenge. At one point I led IT within the Boeing company. My background, as I talked about Space Shuttle, I've done most of my work is not as an HR leader. I've only been doing this for the last 5 years. But at one point the IT department in the Boeing company reported to me, 10,000 people, a few $1 billion worth of annual budget. At an IT security conference within Boeing, I was asked by a member of the team, Rick, I just completed my master's in computer security. What's to prevent you from outsourcing my job? And I immediately responded, absolutely nothing. After a long pause, and I waited for the room to quiet down, I said, now let's talk. In Boeing, we need IT security, and we are running a business looking for the best value that we can find, knowing there are some skills and abilities that are critical to our future that must be done by our employees, and some skills and abilities and experiences that others can provide. The part of the IT security activity that's critical to us is the concept of security, the architecture, how we achieve it, the key system elements, and what I'll call the secret sauce about how it really works. Coding, tools, processes, and there are other elements we can outsource. My response to him was, the bottom line is, if you want to be the best IT security person, then you may or may not have a job at Boeing. However, if you always want to be a part of Boeing, know that your critical knowledge and experience are, and continue to grow and build it based upon what we need at Boeing. If you do what Boeing needs, then you're always going to have a job. And that's the critical distinction that we find ourselves in today. My message is, and I think you already know it, the rate of technology is changing so fast beyond comprehension, there's huge critical competition out around the globe today. Let me talk about the wall, and something that changed the world for everyone in the world, but we missed it, or many of us missed it in the 1980s. The wall came down in Germany in the mid-1980s, and 2 million people rejoiced and provided the opportunity for democracy and freedom. While that was critically important to them, I believe what was equally important that we missed is that the internet was exploding at the same time. And 2 billion people now had access to information they never had access to before. 2 billion. And what did they want? They wanted the same things that we had. So what did they do? They innovated, they created, they tried hard, they failed somewhere along the way, but they continued to grow their experience and continue to grow in their technology. In fact, think back, the automotive business. Think back to the first time these cars showed up with these little teeny tiny wheels, okay, little steering wheels, and weren't very high quality. Today, the big 3 automakers, GM, Ford, Chrysler, they are now part of the top 7, and only 2 of them remain. Okay? They are part of the top 7, but only 2 will remain. How did that happen? Hard work, technical development, and practical experience in the real world, and they continue to innovate this day. Today we see it in the Chinese fighter. Is it as sophisticated as the F-22? No, but it can become that way over time. The only question is, will we have the technical talent and apply it to real-world experiences that we can create and stay ahead with the F-22 or whatever aircraft we'll need to provide the defense of this nation and to be able to meet our particular objectives. I think in the end, whether it's about those of us who have critical experience and are leading in our particular organizations and our departments, are we providing the right mentorship to those who are growing up? Because we know the experiences they do not have. They've got great technical knowledge, but it's the experiences they need. And so it's the same thing, whether it's with our youngsters, whether our children, or our employees, or our peers. We all need the same thing. Innovation is going to create and continue on beyond what we're capable of holding on to, and we will not be able to control it. But it's creating those experiences that will allow us to be successful and apply it in the real world. The last thing that I would mention, because I know there are many in the AI area that says, artificial intelligence, Rick, you're missing it. The computers will be able to figure it all out. And we'll be able to have artificial intelligence. We'll be able to simulate the real world, give us the experience, and think ahead and go forward. I would offer the real world is not programmed like a computer. Despite our best efforts, and I said you all know potentially about it, look at what's gone on in world events here most recently and what's gone on in Egypt with President Mubarak and his view about the ability to control the world. And one would say, yes, it's exchange of information through social media that brought real awareness about what can go on. But I would look even closer to home. Look what's going on in Wisconsin or Indiana, where there are commitments made based upon state budget that says we're going to provide benefits and retirement and health care in an environment that those capabilities should have never been given, those promises never made because of the budget about how can we afford them. So the world is going to change whether we'd like to or not. And I think the key for us is, how do we continue as individuals to grow? How do we create for our youngsters this real-world experience so no matter what comes forward, whether it's a housing crisis, whether it's an economic crisis, and Lord knows the world is full of surprises, that we will have the ability to be successful and go on no matter what happens. We want to be ready for those surprises by having a foundation of knowledge and experiences and relationships with those in the community. In my view, it's the only way to be successful, and I think it provides us all a roadmap about how we create the next generation of workers in America and how we go compete for the future. Thank you very much.